Fife is shaped by royal history, coastal ruins, and quiet towns. After dark, older stories emerge. Tonight, we explore 9 haunted places where memory lingers and the past refuses to remain silent. Balbirnie House, set within landscaped grounds near Markinch, Balbirnie House, carries the quiet confidence of a grand Scottish estate. Its stone facade and ordered gardens suggest comfort, tradition, and continuity. Yet behind this composed exterior, stories have gathered that refuse to settle into the past. The most enduring presence associated with Balbirnie House is known simply as the White Lady. She has been described for decades as a pale female figure moving silently through the building, her appearance brief but unmistakable. Witnesses often report seeing her at the edge of vision, gliding along corridors or pausing near doorways before fading without sound. Alongside these sightings, guests and staff have spoken of unexplained activity that gives the house a distinctly unsettled character. Footsteps are heard pacing above empty rooms, steady and deliberate, as though someone is following a familiar route long after night has fallen. Voices have also been reported low and indistinct, drifting through spaces where no one else is present. More physical sensations have been noted as well. Some visitors describe the sudden feeling of being pushed gently but firmly enough to cause alarm without leaving any visible explanation. Others mention cold patches of air that appear briefly and vanish just as quickly, confined to specific areas of the house. There have also been reports of other apparitions less clearly defined than the White Lady, shapes appearing in mirrors that vanish when turned toward, figures standing momentarily at the end of corridors only to dissolve into shadow. These encounters are often described calmly without embellishment, yet with a shared sense of unease. Skeptics point to the age of the building and the natural sounds it produces. Old structures settle, floors creak, air moves unpredictably. These explanations are reasonable, particularly in a house designed long before modern comfort. Yet those who experience the disturbances often emphasize how personal and directed they feel, as though acknowledged by something unseen. Balbirnie House continues to welcome guests, its reputation secondary to its elegance. Nothing within its walls openly invites belief. And yet when the lights dim and the corridors grow quiet, the sense remains that the house is not entirely at rest. As we leave Balbirnie behind, the image of a pale figure lingering just out of sight follows us onward, deeper into Fife, where castles, theatres, and ancient ruins hold stories even harder to ignore. St. Andrew's Castle. Perched on the edge of the North Sea, St. Andrew's Castle stands exposed to wind salt and centuries of conflict. Its ruins overlook crashing waves, a reminder that power here was once absolute and violently contested. It is within this charged setting that some of Fife's most enduring ghost stories have taken root. One of the most frequently reported apparitions is a solitary male figure seen staring out from a window in the gatehouse. Those who have noticed him describe a still, watchful presence, his gaze fixed outward, as though waiting for something long overdue. 2 historical figures are most often associated with this sighting. One is Archbishop John Hamilton, executed for his loyalty to Mary, Queen of Scots. The other is Cardinal David Beaton, murdered within the castle walls during the 16th century. Beaton's death was particularly brutal. After his killing, his body was placed in a barrel of brine and stored for several months, a grim attempt at concealment. Some believe this act bound his spirit to the place, denying him peace. The figure in the window is said to vanish the moment it is directly observed, leaving behind only the sense of being watched. Equally persistent is the story of a White Lady seen in and around the castle grounds. She is described as veiled, carrying a book close to her chest, her movements calm and deliberate. She has also been reported on the nearby beach, walking parallel to the sea, unaffected by wind or tide. Her identity is unknown, though some suggest she may be connected to religious life once centered here. Other witnesses speak of a darker, more unsettling detail. A figure has been seen moving between windows high in the ruins, despite there being no surviving walls or floors behind them. The movement appears purposeful, not drifting or random, as though the castle still remembers its former shape. Skeptics note that ruins invite imagination. Shadows shift quickly in changing light, and the sound of the sea can distort perception. These explanations are sensible, especially in such an exposed location. Yet many visitors unaware of the stories later describe the same unease, the same feeling of presence, lingering just beyond clarity. St. Andrew's Castle remains a place of history, and study its stones open to the public and its past carefully documented. But when the sea mist rises and the light begins to fade, the boundary between what once was and what might still remain feels unexpectedly thin. And as we move away from the castle's edge, leaving the waves and broken walls behind, we turn toward a quieter building where the disturbances are said to feel far more personal and far closer to the living. Oswald House Hotel. Set within the calm grounds of Dunakia Park, in Kirkcaldy, Oswald House Hotel carries the quiet dignity of a Victorian residence adapted for modern comfort. From the outside, it appears orderly and welcoming. Inside, however, a series of persistent stories suggest that not all occupants are registered guests. The figure, most often associated with Oswald House, is known as the Grey Lady. She is described as a woman dressed in muted tones, her presence subtle rather than dramatic. Witnesses say she is most often glimpsed moving through corridors or standing briefly in doorways, never remaining long enough to be approached. Her appearance is said to carry no threat, yet it leaves behind an unmistakable sense of intrusion. Beyond these sightings, activity within the building has been reported that feels more physical in nature. The kitchen is mentioned frequently in staff accounts. Items have been known to shift position without explanation. Utensils disappear, only to reappear later in places already searched. Cupboard doors are found open when they were previously secured, as though someone has been working methodically through the space. One of the more unsettling reports comes from a guest room where a small girl has been seen sitting quietly at the end of a bed. She is described as calm, and still her presence noticed only after a moment of confusion. Those who have encountered her often speak of a sudden silence in the room, followed by her disappearance when they look again. No sound accompanies her arrival or departure. There are no stories of shouting or violent disturbance here. What unsettles visitors most is the contrast between the hotel's peaceful atmosphere and the intimacy of the encounters. The experiences feel directed, personal, as though the building is briefly acknowledging those within it. Skeptics offer familiar explanations. Old houses settle. Staff routines create patterns mistaken for activity. The mind fills gaps when tired or alone. These interpretations are reasonable, and the hotel itself offers no endorsement of the stories. Yet many who stay at Oswald House remark on a sense of being observed, particularly late at night, when movement is minimal and sound carries easily. The feeling is fleeting, but difficult to dismiss once noticed. Oswald House continues to operate quietly, its reputation secondary to its role as a place of rest. But when the corridors fall silent and the lights dim, some believe the house remembers more than it reveals. And as we leave this quiet setting behind, we move toward a theatre where the presence is said to be far more energetic and far less willing to remain unseen. The Byre Theatre, just a short walk from the ancient heart of St. Andrews, the Byre Theatre has long been a place of performance rehearsal and creative energy. Like many theatres, it carries the marks of emotion repetition and late nights spent between applause and silence. It is within these quieter hours that one particular presence is said to remain. The figure most often associated with the theatre is known as Charlie, sometimes called Chaz. He is widely believed to be linked to Charles Marford, a former manager who once worked at London's Old Vic before taking up his role here. Whether the name reflects a real individual or has simply become a convenient identity, the stories surrounding him are remarkably consistent. Staff and performers describe sudden waves of cold moving through the building, often as if someone has brushed past them in a hurry. The sensation is described as purposeful rather than random, like an unseen figure bustling through corridors intent on reaching the next task. In some cases, people have instinctively stepped aside, convinced someone was about to collide with them. Physical disturbances have also been reported. A chair in the auditorium has been seen tipping upright on its own. Toilets have flushed without warning. Lights have switched on and off in empty rooms, sometimes repeatedly, as though being tested. No faults were ever found to explain these incidents. Sounds play an important role in the theatre's reputation. Footsteps are heard moving across the stage when the building is empty. Quiet knocks sound at dressing room doors unanswered when opened. These events are rarely dramatic, but they occur often enough to be noticed and remembered. What distinguishes the Byre Theatre from many haunted locations is the character attributed to its presence. Charlie is not described as threatening or mournful. Instead, he is often spoken of as busy, even protective, as though still overseeing rehearsals and ensuring everything runs as it should. Skeptics point to the complex acoustics of theatres, the movement of air through backstage spaces, and the electrical demands of performance venues. These explanations are sensible, and the theatre itself makes no claims regarding the stories. Yet those who work here late into the night often admit that the building feels attentive, never quite empty. When the final light is switched off and the doors are locked, the impression remains that someone else is still moving through the space. And as we step away from the stage and its unseen activity, we turn toward a museum by the sea, where the presence is said to wait not among curtains and lights, but beside the tools of working lives long finished. Scottish Fisheries Museum. Facing the harbour at Anstruther, the Scottish Fisheries Museum stands among buildings shaped by labour weather and routine. Nets were mended here, boats prepared, lives organised around tides rather than clocks. Though the museum now preserves this history in careful detail, some believe the site retains more than tools and memory. After hours when the harbour quiets and the exhibits sit in darkness, unexplained activity has been reported within the buildings and the yard beyond. One of the most common experiences involves footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps are said to move across empty floors, stopping abruptly when followed. No doors open, no voices answer. The sound simply fades, leaving silence sharpened by expectation. Doors are another source of unease. A particular door has been described as stubborn, resisting opening, as though pressure were being applied from the opposite side. Those attempting to push through report the sensation of meeting force, only for it to vanish suddenly, allowing the door to swing freely. Poltergeist. Like activity has also been mentioned, though always described without drama. Small objects shift position. Items left neatly arranged are later found disturbed. Nothing is broken. Nothing dramatic occurs. The repetition, rather than intensity, is what unsettles staff most. Outside in the museum yard, a darker figure has occasionally been reported near one of the boats. Witnesses describe a shadowy human shape standing close by, solid enough to register yet lacking clear detail. The figure does not move toward observers, nor does it appear startled by being seen. It simply remains for a moment, then dissolves into the surrounding gloom. There is no single legend attached to these experiences, no named individual, no recorded tragedy to anchor belief. Some suggest that the site's long association with dangerous work and sudden loss has left an imprint difficult to define. Fishing communities lived with constant risk, and not every story was recorded or resolved. Skeptics offer practical explanations. Old buildings settle. Coastal wind carries sound unpredictably. The mind fills gaps when alone in unfamiliar spaces. These conclusions are sensible and often accepted. Yet even those unconvinced admit the museum feels different once the doors are closed. The air seems heavier. The space feels occupied in a way that resists easy dismissal. The Scottish Fisheries Museum remains a place of education and preservation. By day, it honors working lives shaped by the sea. But when night settles over the harbour, some believe that a few of those lives still linger close to the boats they never truly left. And as we move on from Anstruther's quiet shore, we turn inland toward ancient ruins, where loss and disturbance are said to be tied not to labour, but to broken reverence and forgotten remains. Balmerino Abbey. Set near the quiet shoreline of the Tay, the ruins of Balmerino Abbey rest in a state of deliberate stillness. Weathered stone arches and broken walls stand open to sky and wind, offering little shelter and no sense of enclosure. Yet despite its openness, the site is said to hold a presence that refuses to disperse. The figure most often associated with Balmerino Abbey is known as the Green Lady. She has been reported both within the ruins and moving slowly among the surrounding grounds. Witnesses describe a female form dressed in green, her appearance faint but distinct, as though she belongs more to the landscape than to the air above it. Her movements are unhurried, and she does not react to being observed. Local tradition identifies her as Ermengarde, one of the Abbey's founders. When she died, she was buried with honor in front of the high altar, a position of deep spiritual significance. For centuries, her remains lay undisturbed. That peace, according to legend, did not last. In the 19th century, during a period of neglect and casual destruction, Ermengarde's grave was desecrated. Her coffin was broken apart. Her bones were taken sold or given away. The fragments of her resting place were repurposed for domestic use, stripped of all reverence. It is this act, many believe, that binds the Green Lady to the Abbey still. Those who encounter the figure often remark on the atmosphere that accompanies her, a sudden drop in temperature, a heaviness that settles without warning, the sense that the ruins are no longer empty despite their openness. Some describe hearing faint movement among the stones, not footsteps exactly, but the suggestion of presence where none should be. Unlike many haunted sites, Balmerino Abbey carries no stories of violence or dramatic disturbance. There are no slamming doors, no raised voices. The unease here is quieter, shaped by loss and disrespect rather than fear. Visitors frequently describe feeling compelled to lower their voices or move more carefully without knowing why. Skeptics point out that ruins naturally invite imagination. Wind passing through broken stone can create illusion. History, when known, can color perception. These explanations are reasonable and often sufficient. Yet even those unaware of the Abbey's story sometimes report an unexpected sadness here, a sense that something valuable was taken and never returned. Balmerino Abbey remains open, unguarded, and largely silent. But among its stones, some believe a founder still walks, not to frighten, but to remain close to what was lost. And as we leave the ruins behind, we turn toward a castle, where legend grows stranger, still bound to a single night, and a game played far beyond human stakes. Lordskney Castle, hidden among quiet farmland, near Lordskney Castle, carries a reputation unlike any other in Fife. Its story does not unfold slowly over centuries, nor does it rely on repeated sightings or lingering atmosphere. Instead, it is bound to a single moment, said to occur only once each year, and only at one precise hour. According to long-standing legend, midnight on New Year's Eve brings an extraordinary scene to life within the castle. At the stroke of 12, Alexander Lindsay, the fourth Earl of Crawford, is said to appear seated at a table deep within the building. Across from him sits a far darker figure, identified only as the devil himself. Between them lies a deck of cards, and the game begins. Alexander Lindsay was a powerful nobleman in 15th century Scotland, a man whose ambition and reputation earned him both influence and enemies. Folklore claims that he entered into a pact staking more than wealth or land on the outcome of a final hand. What was wagered and who truly won is never made clear. Witnesses who claim to have encountered the scene describe an atmosphere heavy with tension rather than fear. The room is said to feel sealed off, from time the air cold and still, as though nothing beyond the table exists. No words are heard, only the slow movement of cards and the unmistakable sense that the game must be played to its end year after year. Unlike other hauntings, there are no footsteps, no wandering figures, no disturbances outside this moment. The legend insists on precision. Miss the hour and nothing happens. Arrive too early or too late, and the castle remains entirely empty. Skeptics argue that the story reflects medieval morality tales designed to warn against pride and temptation. The image of a nobleman gambling with the devil is an old one repeated across folklore. Yet the persistence of this exact detail, the same night, the same hour, has allowed the legend to endure. Lordskney Castle itself offers no confirmation. It stands quiet, its history largely private, its past layered beneath centuries of change. There are no signs of preparation for the fateful night. No trace remains by morning. And yet, as the year turns and midnight passes elsewhere, unnoticed, some believe that within these walls a game resumes played, not for victory, but because it must be. As we leave Lordskney behind, the path leads onward to an inn, where disturbances are far less symbolic and far more personal, unfolding in the quiet hours when guests expect only rest. St. Michael's Inn. Set within the small village of St. Michael's near St. Andrews, St. Michael's Inn presents a picture of rural calm. Its stone walls and modest rooms suggest rest and familiarity rather than disturbance. Yet for many years, guests and staff have shared accounts that point to a far more unsettled presence within the building. One of the most frequently reported experiences involves a woman seen standing silently at an upstairs window. Witnesses describe noticing her from outside, only to watch the window open by itself moments later. When checked from within, the room is found empty, the air noticeably colder than the surrounding spaces. Inside the inn, disturbances are said to occur most often at night. Guests have spoken of bedclothes being tugged or disturbed as they sleep enough to wake them suddenly. Others report the sound of someone attempting to enter their room, a handle turning gently, followed by footsteps retreating down an empty corridor. Sound plays a significant role in the inn's reputation. A child crying has been heard late at night, the sound carrying clearly through otherwise silent halls. Those who follow it find no source only an abrupt end to the noise that leaves the building feeling uncomfortably still. In communal areas, unexplained activity has also been noted. Lights in the function room have been seen switching on and off without cause. Cold spots form, suddenly lingering in specific locations as though fixed in place. Several people have described the sensation of someone hurrying past them in corridors close enough to feel movement, yet leaving nothing visible behind. A particularly unsettling detail involves sightings of a child on the staircase. The figure is said to appear, briefly standing or sitting quietly before vanishing when approached. No sound accompanies these appearances, and no explanation has ever connected them to a specific event or individual. Skeptics suggest that old buildings naturally produce unfamiliar sounds and that expectation can influence perception, especially during overnight stays. These explanations are sensible and often accepted by those who experience the phenomena. Yet the consistency of reports across different guests and years has ensured the stories persist. St. Michael's Inn continues to welcome visitors, its reputation secondary to its role as a place of rest. Nothing within its walls openly invites belief. But when night deepens and the corridors quieten, some guests find themselves listening, carefully aware that sleep may not be the only presence moving through the building. And as we leave the inn behind, one final location awaits: a hotel where royal association, sudden movement, and lingering scent combine to bring our journey through Fife to a quietly unsettling close. The Covenanter Hotel. Standing on the square in the historic village of Falkland, the Covenanter Hotel looks out over a place shaped by royalty, conflict, and ceremony. The building itself carries centuries of association, and it is this deep connection to Scotland's past that has given rise to one of Fife's most evocative ghost stories. The figure most often linked to the hotel is said to be Mary, Queen of Scots. Falkland Palace, just across the square, was one of her favoured residences, and local tradition suggests her presence never entirely departed the village. Within the hotel, a female apparition has been reported. On several occasions, her appearance sudden and unmistakable. One encounter stands out in particular. A guest staying overnight reported seeing a woman move across the bedroom in a way that defied normal movement, described not as walking but as gliding swiftly through the space. The experience lasted only moments, yet left a deep impression, accompanied by a sharp drop in temperature that lingered after the figure vanished. Other reports from the hotel are quieter, but no less unsettling. The scent of lavender has been detected unexpectedly in empty rooms and corridors, appearing without any clear source. Footsteps have been heard moving overhead when no one is present, slow and deliberate, as though someone were pacing thoughtfully. Guests have also spoken of cold patches of air that form briefly then dissolve, confined to specific areas of a room. What distinguishes the Covenanter Hotel from many haunted locations is the sense of dignity attached to the presence. There are no stories of aggression, no objects thrown, or doors forced open. The experiences are fleeting, restrained, and often described as oddly calm, as though the figure moves with purpose rather than unrest. Skeptics point out that the hotel's proximity to Falkland Palace, combined with strong historical association, makes it easy for imagination to fill gaps. Old buildings carry smells, sounds, and temperature shifts that can feel significant when noticed at the wrong moment. These explanations are reasonable and often accepted, yet many guests who arrive unaware of the hotel's reputation later describe a sense of being observed, not watched in menace, but acknowledged briefly and then left alone. The feeling passes quickly, but it is rarely forgotten. The Covenanter Hotel continues its daily life welcoming visitors drawn by history and charm. Nothing within its walls advertises its stories. But as night settles over the square and the palace beyond falls silent, some believe a former queen still crosses the threshold from time to time, moving through familiar spaces that once felt like home. And with that final presence lingering quietly behind us, our journey through the haunted places of Fife comes to a close, leaving history, legend, and silence to settle once more into the stone. As our journey through Fife comes to an end, these places remain woven into everyday life. Whether seen as legend or lingering memory, they remind us how closely history clings to place. Join Creepy Experience as we continue exploring where the past is never entirely still.